Crystal Tower Information Whiskey 2153 Zulu, wind 060 at 5.
076 Mike Juliet, this is departure radar contact.
Hazardous weather information from Minnesota available on flight service frequency.
You've dialed in the Flying Midwest podcast, connecting aviators from across America's heartland, sharing news, information, and events from around the region.
Calling Nancy 53 on over tower, roger, turn left heading 070, runway 9er, clear for takeoff.
Sit back, relax, and join our crew for some hangar talk as we discuss a wide variety of regional aviation topics.
Archer 71143, flying flag, runway 28 left, quick takeoff, left hand south first.
And now, from our home at the Anoka County Blaine Airport, our checklist is complete, and we're ready for departure for another episode of the Flying Midwest podcast.
Contact departure on your flight.
Welcome, everyone, to the Flying Midwest podcast. I am Jim, one of your hosts. I am joined by Maddie.
Oh, we're recording. Hi.
Yeah, I'm recording. You're Maddie.
Saw a little uploading thing. I thought it wasn't
Yeah.
work. Okay, I'm sorry.
And the one and only Badger pilot, Andrew.
Good evening, folks. And I see the little record light going, so I think we're recording.
And that's typically what that means. For those who are just joining us because it's the start of the episode, we have been screwing off for the last 30 minutes and unable to record something productive. So, welcome aboard.
All aboard the national disaster that is this podcast.
I think we agreed it's low-key Brian Turner's fault.
We did.
Yeah.
So if anyone has not seen Brian's latest video where he shows what aviation would look like, it was the same as like if you were driving. There's a couple of nods to our friend, the Badger pilot here. And we've been derailed talking about this video and laughing at it. So we finally decided it's time to just record. But we were derailed for some time.
What's the aviation equivalent to a train derailing?
This podcast.
Yes.
So let's talk about some aviation stuff. Since our last episode, I logged a bunch of hours. I mean, not like a ton, but enough for me. Twice in one day. I went up and I figured since it's been a while and I want to get back on the horse with that CFI stuff. And my course is over now with work. So I decided to go and just do practice of private pilot maneuvers, have a good time for an hour and a half. And I came back and my partner in crime in the airplane texted me and said, I see that the hangar door is open. Do you want to go fly again? So the answer to that was yes. So
Heck yeah.
up I went. We did some practice approaches and I knocked some rust off. It was a great day in the air.
I have done almost snow flying, which is unfortunate.
You've been out of town, haven't you, Maddie, with the holidays? And
Yes, I went on #vacay. I went... Did I just say that?
you 100% did, and it's staying.
Yeah, I'm not even going to bother trying to change it. Yeah, so for my #vacay, it had two parts.
She doubled down on it.
What?
You doubled down on
I
it.
heard what you said. Yeah.
I still know it as pound sign vacay.
Okay, boomer. Anyway, I went to New York City. It was super great. Hecka rad. 10 out of 10 would do again. I'm committing to this bit.
You sure are.
It was really great, though. I got to see my boyfriend. It was wonderful. And then I flew back and proceeded to drive the next morning 10 hours to go see my family. So I did that. It was excellent. My dog loved it. I loved it. And now I'm back working. I've flown twice because apparently nobody wants to fly right now, which is super cool.
Is it your weather down there, or is it just...
It was beautiful today, and I flew once. One time. I had one person on my schedule. It was very, very sad, actually. Tomorrow's going to be nasty, but no. Some of it was snow, like the holiday, and then it snowed 8 inches, which is weird for Wichita, Kansas. So we'll talk about that more in a bit. What have you been up to, Badger?
Not flying. That's for sure. November is actually going to be the first time since I started flying that I logged 0 hours in a calendar month.
Really?
And yeah, I'm not thrilled about it, but I guess we're saving up for January and February. I don't know. Life and family and everything has been very busy, and Of course, that's always exciting and good things, of course, but it takes away time to fly. And the times that I have had available, there's either been maintenance issues with the plane, or more often than not, it's the weather, because we all know fall and early winter in the Midwest is not the most hospitable time for flying.
I've heard that.
Yeah. But that's all right. I've been keeping my mind in the game other ways. I've been doing a lot of flight sim type stuff, which is not nearly the same, but it keeps my head in the game, doing some studying for ground for commercial.
There you go. Hey, you wanted to shout out one of the control towers. Was it DuPage, Iowa? Is that right?
Yeah.
Or is it what?
DuPage, Illinois.
Illinois. Sorry. I knew it was a state that started with an I.
Yeah, one of those states down there. Delta Papa Alpha as the identifier. My friend Alyssa had a partial power loss on takeoff down there a couple weeks ago, and listened to the ATC audio, and the tower just did a phenomenal job of giving her pretty much whatever she needed. She piped up and declared the emergency right away, and right away they gave her choice of runway, cleared everybody else out of the area, and just did an awesome job. Had the fire trucks rolling and everything, and so shout out to DuPage Tower and all the controllers down there, and for Alyssa as well for working together with them and just doing an awesome job getting the plane down safely and handling all that. So good job, DuPage.
Very cool.
It's really nice to hear of the successes. I feel like often we're inundated with all the accidents, which is depressing, as any pilot would obviously be. But that's awesome. Props to all of them. And
I will give a shout out as well to Alyssa on her YouTube channel. She does a really, really thorough debrief with like the 3D track log and everything of her flight with the ATC audio mixed in. So go check out Alyssa Miller on YouTube, and she's got an awesome video there talking about it.
I had not seen that. Thanks for telling me about that. I'm going to have to go look for that. What do you say we get into some news?
Sounds good. I'll start it off at Oshkosh, everybody's favorite airport. The Experimental Aircraft Association, EAA, has announced their dates are set all the way through 2027. And looking at the schedule, it looks like it's pretty much going to be the last week of July, which is par for the course. They wanted to make sure they had the dates set for a variety of reasons. Number one, because they know it affects scheduling for other aviation events throughout the summer. And as Jack Pelton, the EAA CEO and chairman of the board, said, he also wanted to announce the dates for the next several years so people can plan their trips to Oshkosh, which I don't know about you guys, but I'm already planning next year and all the way through 2027.
I just booked my hotel for Oshkosh for next year. Not in Oshkosh.
Appleton?
Not even Appleton. The same hotel I stayed at last year, the price literally doubled. So I'm going to go like a half hour out in a different direction. New London, I think, is where I'm staying.
Okay.
What does that look about? Is that a bad part of town, Badger?
No, you froze again. That's all.
I should have asked the Badger. How could I freeze? My camera's off.
I don't know. Your audio glitched.
You glitched. It's your Wisconsin internet. Sorry. Carry on with your news stories. I'll stop talking now.
Staying in Wisconsin, Racine company Delta Hawk, who last spring had an FAA-certified jet-fueled piston engine for GA, is now moving forward with hydrogen capabilities. They're testing out a hydrogen engine for applications outside of just aviation, including commercial power, defense platforms, and ultimately, zero-emission vehicles. The goal with the hydrogen engine is to ultimately reduce net carbon footprints, coupled with airborne lead removal, and will give the company the ability to expand their engine into a variety of different hydrogen fuel platforms outside of just aviation. So good work to Delta Hawk for representing Wisconsin and keeping us in the forefront of the future zero emissions.
It's time for me to talk for a little bit. Yay. All right, so I got stuck with Illinois this time. I'm just kidding. All right, so... All right, so Illinois is going to space, people. We're seeing more spaceports now. So although commercial space travel isn't really a thing yet, the Illinoisians, good people of Illinois, have decided that this is going to be their next quest. So the Quad Cities International Airport in Moline, Illinois, is conducting a study where they're evaluating if the area can support a commercial spaceport, which is pretty cool. They're researching this now for development for the coming decades. So it takes a long time for spaceports to be built. And of course, the evaluation process takes a long time. So this could take many tens of years to actually occur. The people of Moline have considered this area to be a horizontal launch site. Only 10 of these have been approved by the FAA as of now, but they do want to go ahead with the project. Now, Moline is centered, it isn't a big town, but it is centered in between St. Louis and Chicago. So it's just within a few hours of both of those. So it could be a valuable resource way out in the future when this is actually a thing that happens. It could even benefit the entire Midwest, as this has not occurred here yet. There are no spaceports, to my knowledge, in the Midwest. The Illinois Department of Transportation is funding this study, and it is not cheap. So we'll see what happens. Right now, they're reporting record traffic levels at their airport. So this could be a good sign for them. We will see.
No, real quick, you're going to have to do that Illinois story over again. I just looked it up. It's Moline.
No,
Shut
you're
up.
joking.
It is not.
No, it's not. Nope, we're keeping it in there.
I'm just telling you what Wikipedia says.
It's Moline now.
It's Moline. Sorry to all you Illinoisians. I'm not that
You
sorry.
are so committed to that song that it's going to stay.
I was really impressed that you could say Illinoisians. Isn't it Illini, though?
Huh?
It's Illini. It's not Illinoisians.
What are you talking about?
They're the Illini. If you're from Illinois, you're an Illini.
We should know this.
Absolutely not.
I have family in Illinois,
And they don't count. They're an Illinoisians.
Stephanie Lane, if you're listening, you count.
Can I do this news story so we can be done? So back at Oshkosh, we actually spoke with Kyle Lewis of AOPA about some of the programs that the organization has for schools. So things like K through 12 and Rusty Pilots, all that kind of stuff. Specifically, we're looking at Nebraska today for something called Operation Taking Flight, which is a grant given to different schools in Nebraska from the Department of Defense Education Activity. This grant will span over the course of 5 years, and this funds the cost of math curriculum development. And it's also going to bring this curriculum from AOPA into the school. So the program is free, but however, the teaching and the resources are not. It's something that they have to do themselves. They're planning on giving $2 million for this grant for this education. Bellevue is home to Offutt Air Force Base, which houses clearly many families, and 25% of the students in that district are connected to the base in some form. Part of this is going to go towards flight simulators, drones, and to hire an instructor to do all of the piloting stuff and also the building, maintaining, and inspection of experimental aircraft. So this person will be very well-rounded. And then this grant, again, covers the first 5 years of that program. So we'll see where this goes. So this is, I think, is a really awesome thing for students. Aviation is extremely underrepresented in our schools. And I think this is an amazing way to get the students involved. Oh, also, the Wichita airport closed because we got a lot of snow, which I think is a hilarious and noteworthy thing to mention.
Seriously? How much is a lot of snow? Let's back this train up.
8 inches.
Shut the front door.
7.8 inches. Yes. I kid you not. They closed 2 airports. They closed Jabara Airport, which is it's a Class Echo airport. Eisenhower and Jabara were both closed from 7 p.m. last Saturday to 6 a.m. the next morning. They canceled, I believe, 4 flights. Apparently, the last time this happened was on February 4th, 2014. So not November, like nobody was expecting, but it was something that occurred and that I felt like I needed to make note of because it was kind of funny. Everybody was fine, that I'm aware.
I'm glad you all made it, and I hope that you can rebuild.
We will rebuild.
This just in from the internet. It's either pronounced Illinoisan, Illinoisan, Illinoiser. Those are your options. Illinoiser.
What?
Hey, you're Illinoising.
Don't what me. It's on the internet. It has to be true.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to call Ed.
Call Ed. Do it.
Yeah, he needs to be.
Do it right
part of
now.
this. Get him on the old speakerphone.
All right. Well, you could send him a link. You want to send him a link?
No, this is funnier.
Let's see if he answers.
You reached out to Sarah. I'm currently unavailable at the moment.
Just leave a voicemail and just ask him
He's probably asleep.
what an Illinois resident is called.
Hey, buddy, it's Badger Pilot. Sorry, we didn't realize how late it was, but we're recording for Flying Midwest. Jim and Maddie are here. They say hi. And
Right.
he can't hear you. I've got headphones on.
That's not the point. He'll hear it when he listens to the episode.
We need to know what you call somebody from Illinois. That's not a fib, but like, what is the official term for somebody from Illinois? So sorry for calling so late. You can just send me a text and we'll figure it out and we'll put it in the show notes, I guess. So, all right. See you. Okay. Oh, I feel bad. I hope I didn't wake him up.
This has been the most off the rails episode we've done in a long time. So with the news out of the way, let's talk about who we have on this episode before we get into our next little news segment that I'll tell you about in a second.
We have Blaze Jensen, who is the author of a children's book and, more notably, the first mom to be a Thunderbird pilot, who also happens to hail from the great state of Wisconsin. Yeah,
it's going to be a great interview. She was really entertaining. She's got a lot of really cool stories. And we get to talk about her book, so that's going to be awesome, too.
Yeah, I actually bought the book on Amazon and read through it. It's a great little book. And it's a kid's book, so I was able to handle it.
Well played. Well, before we get into the interview with Blaze, as well as our new segment, a quick word from those who make the podcast possible. Attention aviators. If you're passionate about flying, you need to check out Pilot Quarters. They are a pilot-owned family business based right in the Midwest in Michigan. They are on a mission to create your next favorite flying shirt. From comfy camp shirts to stylish polo shirts, sundresses, and tees, Pilot Quarters crafts unique aviation apparel. Choose from full-color chart designs, subtle overlays, or even wild tropical pattern blends with your favorite charts. Elevate your style and aviation passion. Visit pilotquarters.com today and soar in style. Aviation friends, let me share with you an absolute game changer in eyewear. I am personally hooked on Flying Eyes optics. Their stylish designs pair seamlessly with your headset for superior comfort. I used to fly with those cheap gas station sunglasses, but since switching to Flying Eyes, I can't go back. They're sleek, durable, and way more comfortable. Trust me, your eyes deserve the upgrade. Check out our affiliate link in the show notes, and make sure you use code FlyingMidwest10 for an unbeatable 10% off your purchase at Flying Eyes. Fly with comfort, fly with style. Visit Flying Eyes Optics today. Let's talk about some of the best active noise reduction headsets on the market. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just taking flight lessons, Lightspeed Aviation headsets are engineered with you in mind every step of the way. They've created the quietest and most durable A&R headsets on the market. Their high quality and innovative technology ensures you stay comfortable, connected, and safe in the cockpit. I've personally flown with Lightspeed for over a decade, and I wouldn't dream of flying with any other headset. Elevate your flying experience with Lightspeed. Check out our affiliate link in the show notes so that you can support the podcast with your next purchase. Aviators gear up for the skies with Flying Midwest Podcast merch. Dive into our latest edition, the striking Ghost graphic designs, available in long sleeve tees, sweatshirts, and hoodies, perfect for your winter flying adventures. Head over to flyingmidwest.com/merch today and snag some of the coolest gear in aviation.
Oh, wait, Ed just texted me back.
Oh, this just in. What does Ed say?
Sorry, I missed your call. I was letting the dog out flying in Illinois, but should I call him back?
Yes, call him.
Yes, call him right now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is there an echo?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is an echo?
There's a lot of yep. All right, let's do this. Tell him to check his Facebook. I'm sending him a link.
Are you really sending him a link?
Yeah. Well, you're calling now. Go ahead. Call him.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how about you?
Good. Sorry to call so late. We have a pressing question. I'm here with Jim and Maddie.
So,
Hey, Jim and Maddie, what's up?
So we were doing a news story from Illinois, and we needed to know what the official term, not fib, but what like somebody who's proud to be from Illinois would refer to themselves as.
Someone that's
Like
proud to be from Illinois?
The fraud,
Proud to
yeah.
be from Illinois?
So like Wisconsin, I'm a Wisconsinite. Jim's a Minnesotan. Maddie's just sort of lost in Midwest land.
Man, I don't know. I don't think people are as, like, I don't think they're really proud to be from Illinois. At least I wasn't.
Well, let's just pretend you're from Illinois, so you are a
Land of Lincolner.
Oh, that's not one we used.
I don't accept that one. There was Illinoisan, Illinoisan, Illinoiser.
Polynesian?
Yeah.
Well, do you make it sound like Polynesian? Do you make it sound way fancier than it is?
I was so sure Illini was a thing.
Don't tell me if you went to, Illinois State.
Oh, okay.
That would, yeah, then you'd be in Illini.
Okay.
That makes
I
sense.
don't know. I mean, I feel like we all say we're from Chicago, no matter where we're from in Illinois. So it's like, oh, like where are you from? Oh, Chicago. Even though I live 30 miles away, you're still from Chicago.
That's practically Chicago.
Perfect.
Cool.
Sounds
Talk to you
good.
soon.
All right. See you.
All right. See ya.
It's funny every time.
All right, you two, are you ready for the newest bit on the Flying Midwest podcast?
What is the newest bit?
Just in time for the holiday season.
Oh, is this the thing with the
This is the thing.
sectionals? Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with the sectionals.
How are we doing?
Oh, you wait and see. I got a surprise for you.
Are we waiting in seeing or are we waiting in hearing? Because this is an audio-only podcast.
It's both. It's both. All right, in honor of our sponsors, Pilot Quarters, the folks that bring you chart-inspired apparel, we're going to bring you a brand new section. I keep saying section.
Just go with it.
No,
It's
we're going to
a
bring
new
you
section.
Yeah, a brand new segment of the Flying Midwest podcast, which we're calling the Pilot Quarters Sectional Showdown, where one of us on this podcast will quiz the other two on symbology on a sectional. We're going to first try describing what the symbol is. It's just like verbal Pictionary. If they can't guess based on that, I will post the image in our own little group chat here. And then for the listeners later on, I will post the image on our social medias so you can see what the sectional showdown is, and you can comment in our comments of that post to tell us what you think it is. I will describe what the symbology is for you. It is along a coastline, which I'm assuming is an ocean coastline, and there are a number of asterisk sign looking things. They're black asterisks that go along the coast.
Funnily enough, I did some flight training near water, so I know exactly what you're talking about, and I know what
I
it is.
forgot. This is not fair.
I just have a regular sectional.
All right, Maddie, what is it?
They are, I can't be 100% sure because I'm in between two things I haven't thought about in a while.
Oh.
They are either coral reefs or they are shoals.
Oh,
Okay.
that's not what I was thinking.
I think my final guess is shoals.
Maddie's guess is shoals. Okay, Badger, what is your guess?
Well, mine's not going to be right, but my mind immediately went up to the Door County area with the wildlife refuges.
Okay. All right. Should be live any second now on your pages if you refresh it.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what you thought it was, Maddie?
Yeah. Yes, but I got it wrong.
Okay. Maddie has the answer wrong because she cheated and looked it up later.
I see what you're saying. Okay, no.
Well, I made a guess. I knew it was kind of wrong, and I needed to satiate my curiosity. So I am sorry.
Badger,
I didn't know how the game works.
this is your time to shine.
There's no shining here. I know I was way off with my earlier one, but
Well, turns out you are both incorrect, so everyone else, now's your chance to make us look just plain silly, and go onto our Facebook page and our Instagram and leave your guesses in the comments. We'll reveal the answers in our very next episode.
I used to be like the queen of knowing all that, and I have been asked about the asterisk before, and I got it.
All right, so let's get ready to welcome the guest for this episode of the Fly Midwest podcast. We're going to have on Carolyn Blaze Jensen. Blaze is a retired lieutenant colonel from the United States Air Force. Most notably, she was the first female mother pilot on the Air Force Thunderbirds. She's going to come on and tell us about her time in the military, flying with the Thunderbirds, and her new children's book, Thundermouse, which is out now for your kids to take a look and enjoy. All right, so welcome, Blaze, to the Flying Midwest podcast. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you coming on, and we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, including your new children's book. So,
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you guys tonight.
Awesome. Well, we're going to start you out the same way we start everyone out with, and that's the Fast 5 questions, where it's rapid-ish response. If you would like to expand on an answer, that's fine. Don't feel like you have to answer in one word, though. So it'll be fun, though. So I'm going to jump right into it with question number 1. Favorite aircraft that you have flown?
That's a tough one. I think I'll have to go with the F-16, though. I had 1,850 hours. I didn't quite hit that 200 or 2,000 hour benchmark, but I spent a lot of time in the F-16. So the block that the Thunderbirds fly had 30,000 pounds of thrust with the afterburner cooking. So try taking off with like 3 of your closest friends and going straight into a loop with 30,000 pounds of thrust, and that'll be your favorite plane too.
Where can I sign up to do that?
I wish I could take you. You don't know how many people. I would be so rich if I could just steal a bike.
All right, question number 2. In your opinion, ugliest aircraft you've ever seen?
Oh man, let me think about that. You know what? It's kind of ugliest. The Breezy, like it's basically like an ironing board that has a lawnmower engine strapped to the back of it. I don't know if you guys have seen one of those. Like it's missing like the cockpit.
Don't, but
you just like.
I'm gonna have to look it up now.
Yeah, it's called the Breezy, and I'm terrified of heights. And you know, it doesn't really bother me flying, but when I got on that thing,
oh, there it is.
Yeah,
that is ugly.
Yeah, it's like kind of not really there. Like I said, it's got like a wing, and there's no cockpit, and it's got
yeah, it's like, where's the rest of it?
A prop. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting airplane. So I did get to ride on one of those ones, and I'm definitely grateful for the ride, but I was happy when I landed, and I actually did not want to go fly on it. And there were a whole bunch of like a dozen World War II WASP there, the women Air Force service pilots, and these like beautiful older ladies were like, "Come on, boys, you got to go do this." So I did it.
It kind of looks like someone started building a Piper Cub and just stopped.
Yeah, they just
like they put the wings on and the tail section, and that's it.
They're like, it's gonna be really hot when we fly in Texas, so we don't need a cockpit.
Don't need a cockpit. There needs to be no skin on the rest of the fuselage.
All ram air everywhere.
Yeah. All right, question number 3. Favorite air show venue?
Oh my gosh, Oshkosh for sure, easy. And well, I don't know, there were some really good ones, but flying over your home state was so awesome. And when I was on the team, we scheduled our airshow performances a year out, so Oshkosh didn't have a heck of a lot of time to prepare for a team of like 60 people, you know, in that busy air show, and trying to find rooms and cars and everything. And the organizers at Oshkosh did such an amazing job. It was like flawless, and everyone knew I was from Wisconsin on the team and how excited I was. So I had like 120 of my teammates like, man, this better not suck, you know? So, and it was amazing. Like everything was so beautiful. The weather was really rainy, and but it cleared up like by the time we were able to fly. So you'd get like Rob, you know, Hollander, Mike Goulian would go up and fly kind of right before us and give us a pyre up and tell us we were ready to go. And we'd go out, and, you know, like right after a storm kind of goes through, how calm and smooth the air is. It was awesome. I loved performing back home.
That's awesome. Who is your least favorite aviation film character?
Least favorite aviation film character?
Yeah, if you're watching like someone that you're like, oh, I can't stand that guy.
I can't think. I mean, like I'm just thinking of like the whole of Iron Eagle kind of didn't really represent the Air Force like you would hope. Like it wasn't as cool as Top Gun, so we kind of end up with these like second-rate, you know, pilots. And I haven't seen the movie yet, but that Hallmark movie about a female Thunderbird pilot that just came out, they actually named the pilot Blaze, and she was a single mom, but they said it had nothing to do with me. So that's
totally a coincidence.
Yeah, just I just came up with it on my own. Like really, you never Googled. So they ended up changing her name to Blitz. So she's my least favorite character.
You know what? That's the best answer I could have hoped for.
It was awful, and I haven't seen the movie. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But it caused a lot of stress. And
it's a Hallmark movie.
It's on a Hallmark channel. It can't be that great.
Yeah.
It's just so they don't have to pay the royalties.
I know. That's why they changed it to Blitz, because I was ready with attorneys. Like I had to call people, and they were like, Yeah, I know it seems like I based it off you, but it's a coincidence. Like, yeah, right, okay.
Total coincidence.
Whatever.
Same name, single mom. The last question: if you could meet anyone in aviation, dead or alive, who would it be?
I would love to meet Nancy Love. And she and Jackie Cochran were the two kind of matriarchs of what became the WASP, but she started the Women's Auxiliary Flying or Ferrying Squadron. And last year, I think it was, I got to meet her 3 daughters, and they let us come to their homes and sit at the table and like look through boxes of her artifacts that they have.
Oh,
and she was such a fascinating woman, very private, extremely talented. She did test flying on a tricycle gear airplane. Like that's, yeah. I think she was actually one of the first. She was like 16 years old and got like a commercial license. It was the first woman to fly for hire back in like 1916. You can't quote me on that. You'll have to Google that too.
We'll let Google tell us.
Yeah, but just really fascinating and very competent pilot. Very, private. So I would love to sit and talk to her about her experiences.
Yeah, that'd be really neat. Well, thank you for playing along with our Fast 5 questions and giving me one of my new favorite answers. So it's been wonderful. So, well, we will jump into the interview with Andrew.
Yeah, being from Wisconsin, just like you, Blaze, I get the honor of opening up the interview. So pretty typical aviation podcast first question, but tell us about how you got into aviation in the first place.
All right. Well, I grew up in a military family, kind of. I guess my dad's dad was in the Coast Guard during World War II. He was from the Milwaukee area, and my grandmother on my mom's side was actually a spar in the Coast Guard during World War II. And then my dad flew helicopters in Vietnam with the Marine Corps. We'd get to go to Camp Ripley in Minnesota with him sometimes and check out the Hueys. And like one of my favorite birthday parties I ever went to was the base commander's like daughter or granddaughter up at Camp Ripley. We got to drive around in tanks. This is like just as a 10-year-old girl's birthday party. We drove around in tanks. We got to sit in the Hueys, and then we went to like the commander's house and we watched like the Miss America pageant. Not kidding. It was so awesome. So those kind of experiences and being around it. But I was, I believe, about 6 years old, and I came downstairs one night. I had like a stomach ache. I was supposed to be in bed, and there was a movie on TV about it, and had a biplane like flying around in clouds. And I was just like enamored by that and the thought of it. And, at 6 years old, you think like, is it a brick wall? Can you get out and walk on them? Or like, what's it like to fly around clouds? So that really kind of hooked me. And then combined with the family heritage of serving in the military, especially during times of conflict, being in the military was always something that I really wanted to do. And then I saw Top Gun back in 1986, 87 timeframe, and I really wanted to go and fly jets. I didn't want to be Charlie, the instructor. I wanted to be Maverick, the pilot.
There you go.
So, yeah. So I was really excited about that. And I went to my liaison officer for the Air Force Academy. I went to him and he was like, well, that's great, but women can't fly fighters. So I was pretty heartbroken and came back to my dad. Like I said, he was in the Minnesota National Guard flying helicopters up at Camp Ripley at the time. And he was like, well, you know what? The rules can change. They changed before. Women used to be able to fly all of the airplanes in the inventory. They got to do all the missions except for combat, and it's your job to be ready if the rules change, and you'll be first in line. And I was really fortunate that I kind of kept my nose to the grindstone. I wouldn't have naturally gotten the good grades that I did in high school if I didn't have the motivation of wanting to fly fighters, and the Air Force Academy was really my first step there. My senior year in high school, when I entered the Air Force Academy, I entered in 1994, and the rules had changed in 1993, like less than a year prior to me entering. Nice. Yep, it was pretty cool. And then when I got there, I struggled with academics, but the one thing that I did really well was flying the gliders. So I had one flight in a 172, and I'd flown to and from the Air Force Academy for camp. So that's 3 flights. My 4th flight ever in my whole life was on the airliner to go to basic training at the Air Force Academy. But I was going to be a fighter pilot. So sometimes being naive works out for you, because I got to have a pretty amazing career. But luckily I loved the glider, and I was good at it, and I got to apply for the program and become a glider instructor. So that was how I really learned how to fly without an engine.
Wow.
So falling with style, as they would say in Toy Story.
So with a family history of military at different branches even, what made you gravitate towards the Air Force?
I was really loved the Air Force Academy, the mountains, the service academies, and the structure was something I felt that I would excel in. I don't know. I always loved the F-16. I guess they had more fighter aircraft, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. It's funny, when you go to an academy, you have to get a nomination from a member of Congress. So you can apply to your 1 representative or your 2 senators from your state. And it was Herb Kohl's office, I think, back in the day. The person who did the interview with me was a naval aviator, and he asked me the same question. He was so angry that at least I thought so in my 18-year-old, 19-year-old brain.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'm never gonna get this recommendation, but I ended up getting one from them. So I went to an air show in Eau Claire, and I saw the Thunderbirds fly there, and that's when I was really like, man, I want to do that. And I really started digging into the Air Force Academy, and I did apply to all of the academies, but the one I really wanted to go to was Air Force. I was lucky that it worked out.
Yeah.
Okay, Blaze, you talked a little bit about having to apply to actually get into the academy. Could you give us a little more detail on actually the process of you getting into and actually attending the academy?
The Air Force Academy, or actually all the service academies, have a pretty rigorous application process, and their acceptance rates are pretty low. It's 10% of applicants because they are a full ride scholarship. Essentially, you get pay as a lower rank in the military, but a lot of that pay goes towards books and uniforms and whatnot. A lot of it's based off of your grades, extracurriculars. They look for leadership. They've made sure that they've developed a system that will capture people who are hardworking, who are going to make it through, who might not necessarily be the straight A student and the captain of the football team. And they've got some programs to look in other areas at people who might be really successful at the academy, but don't necessarily have the same background academically. There were letters of recommendation needed to get from teachers. There was a fitness test that you had to take to get into school. We had to do 1 pull-up as a woman, which is really hard. And I was a swimmer, so I had pretty decent upper body strength, but I swear I almost pulled the muscle in my back to get that 1 pull-up. I wasn't working so hard for that pull-up. So, and then you had to get a nomination from a congressional nomination. So either your representative or one of your 2 senators from your state had to nominate you. And there's some other nomination routes that are extremely competitive as well. Yeah, it's a whole process. It's a lot of hard work. I ended up getting into Coast Guard Academy first, which is awesome. I got into West Point, Annapolis, and the last one to accept me was the Air Force Academy, but I kind of held out for that. So I'm really glad that I did, obviously.
It worked out, it looks like.
It went okay for me. So like I said, I was pretty naive going in thinking that I had these goals, but they definitely came true. I like to tell people, and I mean it sincerely, if I can do it, anybody can do it. You just have to have enough determination and work hard and find the right people to focus on your goals, and anything can happen. I had a really hard time academically at the Air Force Academy, and I ended up majoring in English. So I have a Bachelor of Science in English from the Air Force Academy. Because that was the best kind of way for me to make it through. I'm not a very engineer brain, although I love STEM. People always want me to encourage, kids to do STEM, which I definitely agree with. But I love my English major, and that helped me a lot too in the Air Force.
Did you originally pick an English major, or did you try something more engineer side and then had challenges, or?
The academic core classes are set up extremely heavy on engineering. Okay. In your freshman first 2 semesters, you really don't have a choice of what you're taking. So sure. You get that science base. And I kind of thought, well, maybe I'll do electrical engineering, and aero is where all the really smart people go. And I didn't feel like I could keep up with a lot of the math classes that were required for that. Sure. So I thought about electrical engineering, and I'm I could hack any of it, but it was a lot of work. And I really enjoyed my English class. I loved reading. I loved writing in that kind of format, being able to analyze things. And sure. Like I said, when it came to writing performance reports and awards and different things that we have to write as part of a military career, and when you become a leader, there's a lot of documentation and writing that has to go on for your people. Sure. It really came in handy. Nobody ever asked me to build an airplane, so they still let me fly them, thankfully.
Yeah. So as you're going to the academy, there's obviously a process to get a pilot slot. What does that look like?
It can vary from year to year. There's some years where they have too many pilots, and obviously right now there's this huge pilot shortage.
Yeah.
That was similar to what it was like in 1998 is when I graduated. So that year there was a little bit of a shortage, and actually every person in my class who was pilot qualified physically was expected to go to pilot training, to the point that they had to go talk to like the commandant of cadets if they didn't want to go to pilot training and explain why they didn't want to go. So they were like pushing everybody. But again, it's competitive. You have your grade point average, which everyone's familiar with, but we also had a military performance average. So that was another, and then there was an athletic average too that you would get graded. So those three things would kind of line you up in a rack and stack, and then that's how you picked what assignment you went to, whether it be you want to be a maintenance officer, or you want to do public affairs, or any of the other AFSCs, the Air Force specialty codes or jobs in the Air Force. It would kind of just go down that list, and we're talking like 900 cadets by the time we graduated, probably 950.
Sure. So you've been using the term academy all this time, and I have a note here about UPT. Is UPT the same thing? Is that the next step? What is UPT?
Yeah, UPT is undergraduate pilot training. So to get accepted to undergraduate pilot training, or UPT, you have to already be commissioned as an officer with a 4-year degree, and then be medically qualified to go to pilot training, and then potentially compete for a pilot slot, and then attend pilot training. And the pilot training program starts out now in the T6 Texan 2 trainer. So it has a glass cockpit in it and teaches the students about single engine aircraft. And then from that, they will go into the T1 Jayhawk or the T38. Pilot training's changed a lot recently, and I think most all the bases now have transitioned to giving a pilot their wings at the end of that T6 basic screening, and then they go into specialized training after that. So it's evolving.
So then what were some of the challenges and triumphs that you had either getting into UPT or going through it?
There were like 30 people in my class, and they only had 5 T-38 slots, like 5 slots to go fighter bomber. So that was really challenging. And at the time I was married, and he was also in pilot trainings, and he also had like 30 students that he had to get selected from. So it was a little bit of a crapshoot to see if we would get assigned together. And we both ended up getting a T-38 slot. So that was kind of tricky. But after that, like, we had to go to the centrifuge for the T-38 right at the beginning. It's like literally like your face is like hanging off of the skeletal structure underneath, and it's like hell on earth. It's like not fun to be in that thing.
I can't imagine it is.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So it was pretty challenging there too. And I actually, when I went for my practice T-38 run, I G-locked at like 7.5 Gs. And then later on I got but it was only like familiarization, and they didn't take you out of the T-38. And then after I was a first assignment instructor pilot. So I got like almost 1,500 hours in the T-38 right away as a new pilot instructing, which was awesome. But then I got selected for an F-16, which is a 9G airplane. And I was sweating that centrifuge, but by that time I was like ready to go. But I think that was a pretty big challenge. They had also, once they let women fly, gee, thanks, in the fighter track, they created this test called the FACT test. It was like fighter air crew conditioning test. And we had to do these like crazy lifts, like you do bicep curls, and it was like 40% of your body weight. And the way you had to do the curl, it was like a 6-second count. And so it was like really, really slow on the way up. And then like the release was really, really slow on the way back. So it wasn't like doing like a bunch of deadlifts or in a row. It was like very slow and very methodical. So it took a lot of specific weight training to do that. And then once you got past it, you never had to do it again. Yeah, I think that was pretty challenging. But I don't know, there's always failures, right? I graded myself a lot. I think a lot of pilots probably tend to do that. I maybe didn't enjoy things enough because I was like really worried. I don't know. I guess that was really challenging, just overcoming like my own grading myself. And you're always, there's no such thing as a perfect flight. I'm a Thunderbird pilot. I can tell you, all of your aviators out there, like, there's no such thing as a perfect flight. There's always something that you could do a little bit better.
I find, especially, as women, I feel like we do that a lot because we never like feel like we belong there. I don't know. I've seen that a lot with my female students anyway. So you clearly made it which is awesome. So before you got into the Thunderbirds, what did your career look like?
Yep, I stayed and flew as a first assignment instructor pilot at Laughlin Air Force Base in Del Rio, Texas. I went from there to Moody Air Force Base in Georgia and did an introduction to fighter fundamentals course. And that was really interesting because I already had over, 1,000 hours in the T-38. But that was the T-38A with all the old round dials. And Moody had the T-38C with the glass cockpit. Mm-hmm. It was such a crazy transition because I had flown this airplane thousands of times, and where I went to look for my exhaust gas temperature, my RPM or whatever, it was in a different place just slightly, and it was messed with my brain so much. So that was really interesting. And transitioning to the F-16 then, pretty awesome because we had the heads-up display, and the heads-up display in the T-38C matched what the Viper heads-up display is. But that was my next assignment. To go to Luke then after Moody, and I got into the F-16 for the first time, and it's just awesome to fly with that much power and that afterburner and all the different bells and whistles. One of the big things in the fighters, you have a radar and you turn your radar on every time, and I think I flew my first 3 rides, I didn't even turn the radar on. I just didn't even think about it, and it wasn't part of what we needed it for, so I thought that was pretty funny. And the instructor didn't say anything to me about it. And then I finally got aren't you going to turn the radar? I'm like, oh yeah. I'm I've been using my Mark 1 eyeballs to look outside. And so, yeah. So then I got to the F-16, loved it, and then got assigned to go to Korea, where I got a lot of IFR flying there too. And then I came to Hill Air Force Base in Utah. And from there, we deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom for 6 months, which was a pretty amazing experience, really being a part of a team. And the Thunderbird thing was great, but flying with that squadron and the team that we had over there was really a special experience. And I felt we did a good job protecting the U.S. troops and our allies on the ground. Al-Qaeda Iraq was doing a lot of attacks at that time, end of 2007-08. From there, I came home and I got pregnant with my son, and I ended up transitioning back to the T-38 flying at Shepherd Air Force Base, which is Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training. From there, I was up in the middle of the night, and the mail was sitting on the counter, and there was a magazine, and I transitioned to the reserves too. I basically quit my job without having a reserve squadron to go to, and then I found out I was pregnant, so that was a little bit scary for a while.
I bet.
So after he was born, I transitioned to be a traditional reservist, so 1 week in a month and 2 weeks a year, and there's a little bit more flying available for traditional reservists at pilot training bases. But I saw a magazine for Citizen Airmen, that's the reserve magazine, and in there they had an article about Stroker Gustafson, who was the first reservist selected to be a Thunderbird, and I was bam, hit by lightning at 2 o'clock in the morning when I was up feeding my baby, and I'm that's what I want to do next. So it worked out.
So I called dibs on the Thunderbird questions just because of the exposure I had to them over the years. But so you're had this lightning struck moment of you're going to be a Thunderbird. What does this process look like for you to go into that role?
Well, you have to have a lot of support from your commanders and former commanders, which is really interesting for me to go back and ask people. I felt like it was a win whether I made the team or not, just to know how General Burt Field felt about me. He wrote me an awesome letter of recommendation. The wing commander, the active duty wing commander at Shepherd, when I applied, approached me and said, "Hey, I hear you're applying for the team. Did you need anything from me?" It's sir, actually, if you'd write me a letter of recommendation, that would be great. And he had his own active duty guys, but he had been my vice wing commander when I was active duty and deployed in Iraq. So he knew how successful I was in my flying abilities and my combat record. So that was really, fantastic. So you'd have to get, I think it was 5 nominations. You had to take a full length picture in your service dress. So they make sure you didn't have your ribbon rack on upside down or something, you know, I guess. We had to send in our entire flight evaluation folder, all of your check rides, our whole flying history summary. I think it was around 35, 40 applicants my year. And they selected a dozen of us to go on a trip. It's the most extensive application process or job interview you'll have. So you show up on Wednesday and you meet the advanced pilot narrator. and they show you how they paint the birds where all the nose tires are going to go when the Thunderbirds show up. And there's like only like, I think it's like 6 feet between like wingtip to wingtip. So they got to be right.
Sure.
You see the airlift come in and all. It's like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. You see the Thunderbird shows. You don't see like 60 people get off of an airplane, and within, I swear to God, it was like 20 minutes. Like everything is where it needs to be. All the tools are set up, all the chocks, the ladders, the luggage is in the cars. Like everybody's ready to go. They hit the ground like literally running. And I thought of all the pride and precision they talk about with the Thunderbirds, like that's one of the coolest things that I ever saw, was just seeing the ground crew get everything like laid out and set up for a safe show. Thursday, the planes arrive at the show and they do like a site survey, just kind of zipping around the base to see where the ground references are and how they compare to the picture and the symbology in the aircraft. And then Friday morning is a school visit. Friday afternoon is a practice show, and there's usually Make-A-Wish kids there too, which is really fun, hard, interesting, like rewarding, sad, like all of the things that you can think of with that. It was really special. So that was, part of the application process too. And then just watching the show on Saturday and Sunday, and then we'd fly home on Monday. And then it took like a month, I want to say maybe a month and a half. And then they selected 6 finalists. And we had to do the whole thing all over again.
Oh, geez.
And we had an interview with like the Warfare Center commander, who was like a 2-star.
Yep.
And at the final interview, the 4-star commander of Air Combat Command interviews you, as well as like all 12 members of the Thunderbirds. So we went back to the hangar and we sat down. It's like this, I think they had a water leak, so I think they renovated it. But it was this like wood paneled room. And on one side, it had pictures of all the Thunderbirds who became general officers later.
Jeez. That's not intimidating at all.
Yeah, like, and you're sitting at the end of this table and all 12 officers are there, and they go up the one by one up the like row and like ask you a question. And then, it's kind of do or die because everyone's like pretty equally matched. Now they do like a flying check ride, which we didn't have to do back then.
Okay.
But from there, then they accepted us. So I learned that I was going to be a Thunderbird when I was at Disneyland. And I was standing in Cinderella's castle. I'm not kidding. When all 12 members of the team called me to say, you made the team. So it's pretty cool. And I was like,
awesome.
Yeah, I was on cloud 9. And we walked out of Cinderella's castle. My son was like almost 3. Like he was still in diapers. And I kid you not, he like had a diaper blowout so bad it came up the back of his shirt. Instantly grounded. Like, you think you're cool, well, you're still like my mom. So
yeah,
he's like always been my priority. But it was like right away, like, yeah, no matter what a cool Thunderbird pilot you are, you're a mom first. And
that kind of brings me to my next question. So I've read, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but were you the first Thunderbird pilot to be a mother too?
I was. Yeah, there's a couple other women on the team who had children, but as far as the pilot perspective, I was the first mom to fly on the team.
Okay.
There's another gal after me who had a stepson like towards the end of her assignment, but yeah, I was the first one. So it was really tough. Like I said, he was a toddler, and you'd go to a show, and I remember one show I hadn't seen him in forever, and I was in the VIP tent, and I'm holding him, and like people are coming up to me, and they're like, "Oh, hey, can I take a picture with you?" And I'm like, I haven't seen my kid in like 2 weeks, and I'm holding my son for the first time. And you can't be like, can you just give me like 5 minutes? And there's like all these lines of people. And so it's like, okay, and a lot of time, there's like 120 people on the team, like I said, from over 30 different jobs within the Air Force. And it only takes one person being kind of having a bad day or displaying a bad attitude to make a bad impression for the entire team or the Air Force, depending on what the location is and who the person is.
Yeah.
So you just always had to really kind of be gracious and think about that kind of ambassador perspective. So, but it was hard. Those times when people were like, "Hey, can you put your kid down and take a picture with my kid?" Like, sure, just, give me a minute. But it was fun. And I'd wake up sometimes. They'd come on the road with me. My son was, like I said, 3, 4, 5 by the end. And he always wanted to sleep in my bed. So you wake up with like a foot in your face. And would get up, there's Cheerios on the floor, like that kind of stuff. So he also like nap time is like basically when the Thunderbirds fly at every air show. So I'd be like taxiing out and I'd see him like you're, giving all the gang signs from your jet, like waving at him. And I'd come back in and he was gone and he would like have had a fit. And it's like, well, he didn't have a nap and he ate like a corn dog and cotton candy. So it's like, you were not going to win that battle with him.
So some kids, you get to take their nap by driving them in the car or, putting on soothing music or something. Do you just play jet noises and he falls asleep?
Yeah, he liked that. And, it's funny because I didn't know I was pregnant. Like I wasn't planning on getting pregnant. When I came back from Iraq, we had some time off. And then we got into the airplane and we had to, they called it reconstitution. And it's funny coming back from flying, no kidding, combat. We were no longer, quote, combat mission ready because our mission was all air to ground and we hadn't done the air to air mission.
Okay.
So I was doing these 9G basic fighter maneuver, like dog fighting missions. And I'm like, man, I don't feel good. And I was pregnant and I didn't know it. So he had pulled 9Gs with me a couple times. He's perfectly normal. So I don't know, maybe not normal, but hopefully in a good way.
Were there any other like challenges that you faced with having that dynamic of, being a pilot on the team and being a mother?
It was a tough decision, I know, for the team to select someone as a mother. Which I thought was kind of funny because, there's like one of the guys on the team had 4 kids of his own. Yeah. It's you make it work. And my family really helped out a lot. I probably saw them more as a Thunderbird than I would have had I not gone to the team. They were able to go to the air shows that were in the Midwest area, come out and help me during training season. So I don't know, that was a big challenge.
Can you talk to us a bit about what some of the challenges are with flying some of the maneuvers with the Thunderbirds?
Like all the maneuvers, like every pilot kind of has their maneuver that is kind of the trickiest one for them. And like flying trail is not super fun, or like the echelon turn where all like 4 airplanes are stacked up with each other. And, people are like, oh my gosh, how do you do it? And we're like, well, we all just like hold our breath and like hold still, like, and don't breathe. And, that's funny. We would do maneuvers where, I've got like, cause I was 3 and it was kind of like the poo sandwich, if you will, because you've got like 1 who's stable, 2 is like moving off of 1, and then 4 is behind me, and literally you fly so close that the boundary layer, like the air coming off the airplanes, like interferes with each other and kind of causes you to move a little bit. So it was just really tricky. And then maneuvers when you pull up and you're staring straight into the sun, you like cannot see anything except for the sun, and then you'd have to stare and you're looking for like little glints on the surface of the airplanes, and the crew chiefs keep them like immaculately polished and clean. Oh, yeah. And it's like, okay, there's like a big bright glint. I'm just going to try to hold it like that for that kind of moment as we pass through to the sun. So, wow. I know it was always challenging, but it was really fun. And in the beginning, the controls of the F-16 like barely move. It's like just a couple centimeters. And so it's like almost like you're flying with the pressures on the stick. And so in the beginning, out of self-preservation, you're flying really close and you're, I was on the right side, left turns, I'm looking down at the ground, and right turns, I'm looking up at the sky. And when I first started, we have high definition footage and we'd watch the camera. You cannot practice as a Thunderbird if the camera's not working. You have to have it videoed. There's stripes on the wings of the F-16, and so you can kind of see where like the stripes on my wing line up with the stripes of Boss's wings, but in the beginning they weren't. I was like, mine were like off by like about 5 degrees or something. And what I was doing was like I was subconsciously like my self-preservation was kind of like pulling that immovable stick away from the Boss, and then consciously I was like pushing down that left rudder to rudder in. So I was flying just kind of crooked. And you can feel that, especially when you fly the same airplane over and over again, you can feel that kind of when you're out of trim. But it took me a while to overcome that too. So it's funny, like getting your conscious brain to marry up with your subconscious. But by the end, holy cow, if you're like 1 inch away, you felt like you were 2 miles out of formation. And you get to learn like the way the Boss talked, and you get to know everybody really well. And you can tell what kind of day they're having just by like the radio calls, the way they sound on the radio. So I don't know. It was really a really rewarding thing. And I really, compare it to like an NFL like Super Bowl championship team or any of those big kind of sports teams going out there and just really having to perform over and over again for millions of people.
No kidding.
Is there anything that stands out as a highlight with your career and maybe even specifically within the Thunderbirds?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I don't know, I just try to think back like the biggest, like most favorite flights I ever flew. I like to tell the story about when I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy in my freshman year. Like I almost failed out academically. I had a 2.2 grade point average after taking all of those really science and math heavy core curriculum classes my first year. So I was having a really hard time with academics, and it was like crushing to me because I tried so hard for so long to do everything that I could to get in there. And now I'm like, I gave it 110% and I'm at the end of my freshman year. And I don't know if I can do this, right? I still have 3 more years. And we had to move our dormitories for the summer. So I was moving from kind of the north side over to the south side to Saigon Hall, which is named after Lance P. Saigon, who's from Wisconsin, by the way, and was a Medal of Honor winner. So we were moving over to Saigon Hall, and I was like Charlie Brown, head down, like bummed out. And all of a sudden I was startled, and there was this whoosh like going by, and it was a Thunderbird airplane going like between the chapel and the front range of the Air Force Academy. And I was like, holy crap, like that's why, right? Even they're gonna have to kick me out. Like I'm gonna do everything I can because I have a chance to do that. Like no matter how bad I did, I didn't feel anything, definitely not top 10% of my class, but I have an opportunity to do that. And so it really kind of helped to feed me. So break, like that was 1995. And then 2012, guess who was that F-16 like raging between the front range and the chapel at the Air Force Academy? That was me. So like realizing that and like just that moment, kind of like coming full circle and knowing how everything that I'd gone through was like worth it. Like that was really special. But the mostly I'm like, I hope there's some other poor cadet down there who's like struggling and is inspired the same way I was,
Yeah.
So it's been a little bit since you've been on the Thunderbirds on the team. Is there anything specific that you're doing now still in aviation? You mentioned gliders. So anything else?
Yeah, I'm not currently flying. I'm working on that. One thing I've learned, and especially for any of your young listeners out there, the Air Force is a great way to go because it's all free. I have like millions and millions of dollars of flying experience that I, had to pay for with blood, sweat, and tears, but not money. So I think that's kind of one of the things right now. I'm having to get my finances fortified to be able to go in a little bit more on aviation, but I have a good in at the Minnesota Commemorative Air Force. I'm a member there.
Okay.
And I joined their Satabria Club, so I hope to start flying that pretty soon.
Awesome.
I'm on the board of directors for the National WASP World War II Museum. Ooh. The story of the WASP also inspired me when times really got tough to keep going. I had a friend who was having just a really hard time, and she ended up like talking to the WASP, and she was like, man, I just don't know, like people are horrible to me, and I don't know if I can keep doing this. And the WASP looked at her and said, they made us quit. Like, why would you voluntarily leave, like, and everything that they did to fight for women to be involved in aviation, especially military aviation, it's really special. And I was so blessed to get to know about a dozen WASP on a, fairly personal level. One of my dearest friends is Nell Mickey Bright, who is 102 years old and alive and well in Salt Lake City. And I love her. And every time I call, she tells me about how the B-25 is one of her favorite airplanes. And I love all of her stories. I guess that's how I'm involved in aviation. Really, I want to make sure that those stories go into the future and that they can inspire other people the way they inspired me.
Love it.
So you are the author of a children's book, Thundermouse. Tell us how you got the idea to come up with the children's book. How much of it is based on real life scenarios versus some artistic creativity? Tell us about the book.
Well, thanks for asking about it. I'm really excited about this book, and it started really like 10 years ago, a little bit more than that. My son, I told you, was about 3 years old when I went to the team, and then I ended up with a third bonus year. So he was around 6 when I left the team, but when he was younger, he was sad. The Thunderbirds travel on the road they're gone every Thursday through Monday or more sometimes, but March through November is the the show season, and my, toddler son was like, well, Mom, I want to come fly with you. And I was like, you can't come fly with me. There's only one seat in the F-16,
Yeah.
Like, there's a plethora of other reasons, but that's what I decided to tell my 3-year-old or 4-year-old. And he said, well, if I became a mouse, could I hide in your cushion? And so that's where it started, like the thought of this kind of child being embodied in a mouse that would sneak into the airplane and fly. So the book is based on that true story, and it's about a little mouse that teams up with a boy so that the mouse can sneak into the mom's show fly bag or her luggage when she goes into the F-16, and when the canopy comes down, the Thundermouse like sneaks out and sees all the country and all the different maneuvers, and then goes back at the end and whispers in the boy's ear to tell him about the adventures, and the boy dreams that he was there with his mom. My editor of the book is Lisa Bolt Simons, and her father was sadly taken from her in a Thunderbird crash in 1972. And she was 3.5 years old, which is about the age my son was when I went to the team.
Yeah.
And she's in Minnesota as well, an awesome Midwest gal, and has become a good friend of mine. So she was my editor. She's also an author of over 70 different children's books.
Wow.
So great friend to have. And she linked me up with a awesome illustrator artist named Donna Eicher, who's from Minnesota as well. So it's a great Midwest project. And I think it came together really beautifully. And I keep selling out of my books, which is a good problem to have.
That's awesome.
So I need to order more. I have some opportunities coming up. This week, I get to go to the National Museum of the Air Force. And it's been selected as one of their 5 books for Read Across America. So I'm going to go read the book, and they're going to record it. And I'm going to be standing in front of the museum's Thunderbird
That is so
F-16
awesome.
airplane. Yeah, so it's one of the first things. I've applied for a couple book awards, so we'll see how it goes. But it's just really fun to kind of get that story out there. And I think a lot of kids who maybe have both parents who work, especially military kids, I think can identify with, how hard it is that sometimes our jobs take us away from our families.
And there was another theme I noticed in there when Finn in the story is telling a reporter that his mom is one of the Thunderbirds, and the reporter kind of touches on a theme you've talked about earlier with, women aren't fighter pilots. And this was shown on the news in front of a family in the story, an African-American family, specifically a young African-American girl. I can't help but think that was intentional to sort of spark the conversation. What can we be doing to get more women and minorities into aviation in general, and specifically in military aviation?
Yeah, and that was, thanks for bringing that up too. That's actually a true story. It was my very last show. I was flying, and my dad was, Grandpa was walking around this cute little 6-year-old, and he was all dressed in his little flight suit with his patches from Korea and the Thunderbirds and F-16s, whatever, on him. And a reporter did come up to him and was like, "Oh, little boy, tell me about what you're doing." It was like a man on the street interview for him, and it was on the Fox News channel in Las Vegas, and I cannot find it. They took it off of their data, so I wish I could find it. But I have like some still shots of actually there's one behind me here. I know your viewers can't see that, but he did say, "What's your favorite part of the air show?" And he's like, "When my mom flies." And my dad was like, the reporter's like, "What, this like crazy kid making up stories?" Like the reporter's reaction was like, "Whatever, kiddo." And then they had it on the news that night. And at the end of the news, they go, "For the record, his mom flies one of these." I showed like the Thunderbirds go by. I did a couple of speeches in the area months after that. And like the people in the audience were like, "Oh, is that your son on the news?" Like so many people had seen it or were talking about it. So it was really neat that he was old enough to recognize what I had done. But yeah, and so in that scene, there's 2 pictures in that family on the wall, and one is Bessie Coleman, which is an amazing African-American pilot, and then there's another picture of a friend of mine, and her name is Teresa Claiborne. She's currently a 787 captain for United, but she was the first African-American woman to graduate from Air Force pilot training, and cool. I just love her to death, and she's such a strong person and amazing. And then there's some other Easter eggs that are hidden in the book. In the beginning, there's a picture of my grandmother in her spar uniform from World War II on the wall. And then there's pictures of wasps. There's a picture of the pistol packing mama photo that you see with the 4 wasps walking away from the bomber. But there's one of Mickey Bright, who I told you about, my good friend. When she flew in pilot training, they didn't have uniforms till towards the end. But they hadn't given them shoes, so she's wearing like a zoot suit with open-toed shoes to go fly.
Oh, goodness.
Which I love.
That's cool.
I'm vision through it right now. I didn't even notice all those Easter eggs. That's awesome.
So you mentioned that you've sold out of this book a couple times, right?
Yeah, I have.
When did this come out again? Was it earlier this month?
October, and I'm self-published too, so I'm not buying like hundreds of thousands of books right now. I'm getting like a couple 100,000 at a time, like around that. And then anybody who orders it from my Shopify site, I'm signing them and mailing them out myself. So
cool. Well, it sounds like it's going really well, and we're really happy for you to have the success that you're having with the book. Well, before we jump into the part that you're probably dreading, is there anything else that you want to cover that we haven't talked about that you want to get out there?
I do like speaking for like different corporations and some leadership executive coaching.
Okay.
But some of my favorite coaching that I do is for free, and that's mentoring kids. So, and I even have, kids who are kind of in their 30s. Some, especially young women, seem to reach out to me and be like, hey, I really want to become a pilot and I want to go into the Air Force. I've helped a couple people try to transition to like Guard or Reserve and gain hours that way, or, work on some of these new programs for applications for going straight to the major airlines.
Oh, sure.
So those are things that I love to do too. What keeps paying my bills is doing corporate speeches, which I really love to do that too. And kind of, I think some of the trials and tribulations I've gone through, and I was in corporate America for a time at a Fortune 50 defense contractor, and I actually am the first woman to fly the T-7A Red Hawk, which is still in development and will take over for the T-38. So that was a really cool experience. That was the last 5 hours I had in an airplane was an experimental version of the T-7A. So cool. I know that the lessons that I've learned apply to industry and companies and teams and leaders, especially like with the Thunderbirds, right? The boss is in charge, but you're all flying your own airplane. Y'all need to be going the same direction, same way. You have to have trust in your followers, and they have to be leaders in their own right. All
right, Blaze. What is your aviation unpopular opinion?
You guys told me that you were going to ask me this, and I had a really good topic before that I can't remember right now, but I don't know. I think I like to say that the world's greatest demonstration team comes from the world's greatest Air Force, which is the United States Air Force, the Thunderbirds, versus that other team,
the Canadian Snowbirds.
Exactly. No, I mean, in all honesty, there's like great relationships between us and the Blue Angels. We didn't really get to practice with them or have kind of the relationship that they do these days, which is nice. And, there were some pretty unfortunate mishaps the Blues suffered back around 2016 that we had happen on our team like a couple decades before that. There's a lot of crosstalk now. The Thunderbirds are flying some new formations that we didn't fly. They're so tight. They look beautiful. And I think that that's a direct result of that interaction between the two teams. So I'm ridiculously proud too of the Midwest women that we've had 3 women on the Thunderbirds, one from Medford, Wisconsin, Mace Curran was the second one after me. And then just leaving the team is Lauren Schlichting, who's from Stillwater, Minnesota. Yep. And Amanda Lee is the first woman to fly on the demonstration for the Blue Angels. So
she's from Mounds View, I believe, Minnesota.
Mounds View, Minnesota. So. Yep. I'm so proud of that kind of legacy that
it's really
your
cool.
Midwest fighter pilot chicks are setting you guys up for. So yeah, I guess that's my unpopular opinion. Hopefully it's a popular opinion though, right? Like,
it's popular with me, but I watched, and again, being stationed in Ellis, I watched the Thunderbirds fly around every day, and I never got tired of it.
So when I was on the team, I got to meet Nate Barton, who was the Blue Angel 3, and I was Thunderbird 3. And we've kept in contact here and there along the ways, but I texted him one day because you'd go on the road and you're wearing like a Thunderbird uniform with us. We call it like the dinner plate, that giant white patch, blue uniform. And people are like, "Oh, are you Blue Angel?" I'm like, "No, I'm Thunderbird." And I texted Nate one night. I'm like, do people ask you all the time if you're the Thunderbirds? He's like, all the time. And I'm like, okay, thank goodness. Like, because here I thought everybody thought the Blue Angels was the only demo team.
If it didn't go the other way around, that'd be really disappointing, I bet.
Yeah. He said he was with his kids at like the California Adventure or whatever theme park that is. And it's where you sit up. It's kind of like a gondola ride and you're flying. And there's like the Thunderbirds come in. And he said his kids were like, oh, they were so impressed. They're like, oh my God, Dad, are you going to get to do that someday? Like, he's like, oh, the Blue Angels. So it was pretty funny. Yeah, my unpopular opinion that the Thunderbirds are better.
Yeah, you have my support.
That's mine. I'm sticking to it.
So before we go, how can people find your book?
My book is actually available at all the major retailers. So I like to talk about bookshop.org, I believe, Barnes & Noble, obviously Amazon as well. I have a Shopify website. You can go to my business site, which is www.diamondechelonllc.com. So that's Diamond, ECHELON LLC.com. And right on the top, there's a link that'll take you to my Shopify site, which you will get a signed copy from me. So, and those have been going out like right away, and they've been arriving in like 2 or 3 days. So definitely, I think that's the best way to purchase the book if you'd like a signed copy. And then this next year, I will be on the road, hopefully be at Oshkosh. If they only accept a certain number of authors, so I'm hoping I'll get to be one of the authors there, but I'll be around the Midwest at air shows with the book to hopefully get to meet some people that way.
Well, if EA doesn't bring you to Oshkosh, we'll make you part of the team and we'll sneak you in. How about that?
Sweet. I'm down.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. We really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun talking to you tonight.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. So hopefully see you guys in person soon.
Yeah,
Fly safe.
Thanks to Blaze for coming on the podcast and telling a little bit of her history with the Thunderbirds and her experience as an author for her book Thundermouse. And when she was telling the story about all the little Easter eggs in there, I was actually paging through the book and finding them. There are a lot of really cool hidden gems in there. So go check out the book.
If you would like to purchase this book, one, please do. Two places you can get it. You can get it on her website, which is diamondechelonllc.com. We will have that in the show notes. She spelled it out for you. I'm not going to do that again. Or you can get it on Amazon. I believe it is backordered right now, but it should be available very soon.
Yep. I think it was also cool, all the Midwest connections in creating that book in the first place. The editor, the illustrator, and her all from the Midwest. So I think that's another really cool part of it, to have all of them come together and produce this really cool book.
Jim, you mentioned that the next episode is a special milestone or landmark for you guys.
I didn't mention it, but thanks for bringing that up. I told you.
Well, oh, that's right. And it's not just you guys now, because now I'm here.
Now you're kind of here. All right, so our next episode is kind of a big deal. It's our 50th episode of the Flying Midwest podcast. Well, full release episode, that is. We've had a couple bonus episodes, but we're going to put together something really fun and exciting that highlights the history of those 50 episodes, and I think it's going to be a really good time. So you want to stay tuned for that. One quick programming note on that regard. With the holidays coming up, we'll be taking a short break, and our 50th episode will be published on New Year's Day. So make sure to mark your calendars for that, for a brand new episode of our podcast.
Or just, subscribe to the podcast so you get notified every time we upload.
Oh, that's brilliant. Another fun piece of news is we have our podcast feed now connected to our YouTube channel. So when we publish an episode through our podcast distributor, it will automatically upload onto YouTube. It's something that I have been doing very poorly manually for the last 2 years. I'm just uploading when I remember or have time to do it. But now our platform will do that automatically. So if you get our podcast on YouTube, you can subscribe to that channel and you'll automatically get it there as well.
Jim, if I don't want to wait till January for Flying Midwest Media stuff, what else can I find maybe between now and the new year?
Are you making me talk about the other podcast?
Maybe.
All right. Fine.
It's a big deal, and I'm excited to hear it come back.
Okay, fine. Brand new episodes of Fly the Transition will start again on December 18th. With the very first episode of that new era being Brian Turner, who is a longtime guest, someone we've already name dropped several times in this episode. But he's going to talk about his journey as he's exploring moving from IT into commercial aviation. So that podcast will be coming out. And as of right now, it will theoretically be a weekly podcast. So check out Fly the Transition. You can get that anywhere you get podcasts, or you can go to our website at flymidwest.com, and there's links to all that stuff in there as well. Or if they want to listen to other episodes of the Fly Midwest podcast and go back and relive the glory days, they could do that through the same website, flymidwest.com.
If you would like to support what we do, which we bring this to you for free. However, if you are willing or you want to give us a Christmas present, you can buy some of our merch, which you can give as a Christmas present. So it's like a double Christmas present. Or you could become a patron of ours on Patreon, where you'll be given exclusive perks. You might even be able to come on the show, depending on what level you're on. So go check those things out.
Oh, that brings up a good point. Andrew, you were one of our first patrons, and your level doesn't cover being on this much of the podcast. So we're going to need some more money.
I'll tell you what, whatever
had to be done.
Whatever you pay me to upgrade my internet, I'll put that back into the Patreon.
Okay.
If you want to be on a future episode of the Flying Midwest podcast, or if you have an episode idea or an idea for stumping us on a sectional chart, you can reach out to us on social media, on Facebook or Instagram, or email us at flyingmidwestpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Fly Midwest podcast. And don't forget to rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening. That really helps us get the word out and helps share the podcast with others. So we really appreciate the help with that. So thanks again for joining us. And until next time, see ya.
See you.
See ya.
Flight 536, contact Minneapolis Center 132.35. Good day.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Flying Midwest podcast. Until next time, podcast service terminated, squawk VFR, frequency change approved. Good day.
All right, so Illinois is going to space, people. Oh no, is it Moline? Illinois? No. I actually need. Is it Moline or Moline?
It's Moline, but
Moline.
Illinois is going to space, people.
Am I wrong? Okay. Wait, which one was it?
Illinois. Space. Moline.
Think like Moline.
Is it Moline? Okay. Moline.
Please don't do that again.
Please don't take my space. It's like he's not even here with us anymore.
It's kind of nice.
I'm right here. I can still hear you. I'll start chewing in this microphone again. I'm trying to eat popcorn in peace.
You dare, I will leave.
I'm trying to eat popcorn over here. I'm trying to be nice about it and turn my mic off.
Echo. No, it's just me.
Are you there now?
Initial contact.
Hello.
I'm
here. Where you advise on initial contact? You have echo.
That's up there with like bad jokes with the Simba meme. It's right up there. I used to be like the queen of knowing all that little shit. I was actually asked about. Sorry for the.
Don't apologize to me. Apologize to your mom when I have to beep you out on the podcast.
All right, I give up. You can have your controls.
The defeat in your voice.
Yeah, that's gonna be in the bloopers for sure. I give up. Oh bother. All right, thanks for that, Eeyore. We're gonna go into our interview for this episode now.
This is Thundermouse, and I'm on my own.
Yeah, this is. So, like the Thunderbirds have tests to get into their team, this is our test for you to get into our team to figure out if you can ask questions on your own.
Nope. All right, I'll do it.
No, I took the controls already. You failed this check ride.
That's twice this episode I failed now. Later I'm downgraded to cargo, and now I think I'm downgraded even further to like rampage. I'm the baggage handler now.
I'm not sure I'm comfortable with you even being on the ramp at this point. So, he's
a gate agent.
You are not even that. You are the little kid who gets to stand next to the window and point and go, airplane.